Warning: the following podcast may contain material not suited for those who are easily offended or under the age of 18. It may contain coarse language, dark humor, and/or offensive humor. Listener discretion is strongly advised. Enjoy the show. Hey guys, this is your old pal Cube the Third. Welcome to a very special episode of Otaku Midnight. I'm not actually. This is not a typical episode. I don't really have my friend Kevin here with me, but however, I do have a special guest here with me. So introduce yourself.
Okay. Hey guys. My name on YouTube is Double O Sheridan. I have literally no videos anymore. YouTube took down my old account. If some of you were around in the 2005 genesis of YouTube era and you were into mecha anime or music, my old tag was Sheridan 007. But I doubt any of you really remember me. Either way, I'm here helping this guy talk about our subject for today.
Yeah. Okay, before we kind of get to that, Saradin, what have you been watching lately as far as like anime is concerned? And
Whole lot of hot garbage. I'm just kidding. So this season, I've been watching Yojo Senki, also known as Saga of Tanya the Evil, if you have Crunchyroll. Thoroughly enjoyed that series so far, as zany as and crazy as it is. I've been watching Kobayashi's Dragon Maid. That's just a hilarious good time.
good stuff.
And I've also been kind of trying to get into Gabriel Dropout, although I think sometimes it tries too hard to be moe and forgets what it is as a series. But I'm enjoying it so far. It's kind of like a guilty pleasure for me this season. And then I've been kind of rewatching certain segments of SAO and getting back into that as I prepare to go see the movie with this dork tomorrow in Columbus. That's really all I've been doing recently.
Yeah, pretty much the same thing you've been watching. I still need to get into Tanya the Evil. It's especially from that episode you showed me that the other time I was here with you. Yeah, it looked like, wow, this looks like a crazy show. And yeah, Gabriel Dropout, I really need to get back on. As some people in my circles, everyone basically says that Gabriel Dropout is Umaru-chan 2.0. How do you feel about that?
It's been a while since I've seen Umaru-chan, but as far as like the aspects of adorable otaku culture go, my thing about it is that Gabriel Dropout actually kind of drops off the whole, at least the episode I'm on, which is like episode 5. There hasn't been a whole lot of discussing the main topic recently. It's been a lot of random stuff. I think they had a beach episode recently, but as far as being a pure Umaru 2.0, being full on like into the otaku culture aspect of the show, then I haven't seen all of that yet. But there's still a good 6 episodes left in the series, so we'll see where it goes.
This Kobayashi's Dragon Maid, that show is like that. I think that is honestly my show of the season.
I think it is for a lot of people too. Like I've seen a lot of hype about it. Aki Dearest from YouTube has really enjoyed that series, and she was actually kind of distressed that she hadn't discovered it earlier. Made a whole video about it. Yeah, she made a whole video about it. The Anime Man, it's on his list. There's a lot of people who it's on their list and it's in their favorites. It's just very enjoyable. Very, very silly, but very enjoyable.
It's like, especially, there's been a huge controversy in the community, basically everyone saying that don't lewd the dragons, and I'm like, well, Everyone's gonna do that.
Well, it's too late. I've already been on documakurapillow.com recently, and it already exists in both fabulous lewd and non-lewd versions. So too late, fandom. It already happened. Thanks, fandom. Thanks for looting dragons.
And also, thank you Crunchyroll for doing that 2-hour live stream of 2 hours of Kana eating.
Yeah, that was just. I don't even know what that was, but it was amazing.
That was amazing.
I think one of the hardest points I laughed in that entire series. I think I laughed just about as hard there as I laughed. There's a scene in Girlish Number, which came out last season. If none of you watched it, if you're looking for an interesting insight into what's really going on in the voice actress industry in Japan as it relates to the idol culture industry, it's a fantastic watch, and it's actually fairly accurate. I was able to go to a panel recently. With a and forgive me for forgetting her name, but a Japanese voice actress from the recent Ohio-Con I was at, and I just was able to go to a panel where she talked about the industry.
Oh, I know you're talking about Yu Asakawa.
Yeah, Yu Asakawa. And she was pretty much confirming all of the things that were in Girlish Number as being almost 100% accurate. But there's a great scene from that, and I laughed pretty hard at that. One of the characters laughs to themselves in their head. And it comes out so sporadically. But I think the thing that caught me off guard and made me laugh the most in Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid was the scene where Kana is trying to catch a bug with a net, and instead of going for the net, she just eats it. Just completely bites it. And I just lost it. I thought that was absolutely just brilliant. It was just hilarious. So, very fun so far.
Yeah, I think, honestly, and I've always seen, like, about 4 to 8 episodes of Nichijou. I think it's honestly like the new Nichijou, if you want my honest opinion.
As far
it's
as like
Nichijou with the Monster Girls formula. Sorry.
Yeah, as far as insanity level goes, it's not quite Nichijou. The whole point of Nichijou is it's kind of like it's supposed to be a show about nothing that is just off the wall insanity 100% of the time. Kobayashi's Dragon Maid keeps itself very tame in comparison, although it's still bonkers. It's still very bonkers. But as far as the art style goes, if you loved Nichijou for its simplistic style and its insanity once it gets going, then you'll love Kobayashi's Dragon Maid if you haven't checked it out yet.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. It's really fun, really crazy, it's adorable. Totally recommend it. So, no, I'm not gonna get into that topic.
So what?
I was gonna bring up the recent controversy that's been going on in the anime community, and that is that BBC documentary.
And I actually just showed him this, the Anime Man on YouTube. If you haven't looked him up, just look at the Anime Man on YouTube. He has a fantastic video about it recently that he posted, and it basically illustrates both yours and my thoughts about the whole thing. And he's very good. He's very articulate if you haven't checked him out, and he does a really good job of explaining where this poor, unfortunate lady's logic just fell off the deep end when it came to trying to associate anime culture with aiding and abetting pedophile culture. And if you can stomach the opinions being shared there, I definitely recommend that video.
Yeah.
He's very, very level-headed about most of it.
I just want to give my quick thoughts on that documentary real quick. I saw the whole documentary, and my thing on it is, for the parts that they were talking about actual child sex crimes and all that stuff, okay, I agreed with that. Yeah, okay. But when it got to the parts when they were talking about the manga and doujinshi and hentai and all that stuff, I basically went, I hope you realize that, that no real children are involved in the making of those materials and all that stuff. Yeah. And I think, honestly, when people always say, when art is when that type of art promotes those pedophilic feelings, I honestly shake my head, and it makes me go, hey, I hope you realize, that kind of stuff doesn't actually promote actual real pedophilia. I think it's more of, I consider it kind of like an absurdist kind of medium, if you want my honest opinion. It's kind of,
I mean, I get what you're saying. there's definitely people who will never be able to stomach it. There's definitely people
Yeah,
who will
and
never
that's
be able
fine.
to understand it, and that's fine. They're allowed to have an opinion. But the facts and the statistics support the idea. Are in defense of anime and manga, and there have been several groups, including the UN, the almighty UN, that have tried to get the anime culture to shift into just removing all of that from it, and it hasn't happened yet. And I don't see people of the anime culture. I've been to many conventions, and I have never heard of a sex crime occurring at an anime convention. Like that I've been to, at least. I'm sure it's happened. I'm sure it's very unfortunate, but especially when it comes to children, there's plenty of parents there with their kids. I've never heard of a child being assaulted at an anime convention. So the correlation that anime and manga, and even pornography, which is sold in every dealer's room that I've ever been to, by the way, including LolitaCon pornography, if you really want to get into that. I have yet to see a sexual assault occur at a anime convention. It's just fantasy. It's just absurdity. People say the crazier the fetish, the better. And honestly, there's no problem in safe indulgence. But I'm not a psychologist. I know psychologists. I'm not a psychologist, so I'm not going to say anything further. That's just my 2 cents on the whole matter. And you shouldn't let anyone, in my opinion, who tries to tell you, like, hey, you like that anime manga crap, you must like little girls, just walk away from them. It's not worth. They have already made up their minds about you. They have already made up their minds about the subject matter. They have not received the wealth of information and the wealth of supporting facts against that out there. And it's really hard to change somebody's religion, so to speak. So just walk away from them and just don't indulge their don't put yourself in a position to indulge them. Like, just don't talk about it. But yeah, that's my 2 cents on all of that.
Yeah, and of course, there was that interview that was cut from the documentary.
Which, again, if you watch Anime Men's video, he talks a lot about that, and talks about a lot of the things that the person she interviewed said in relation to what she was saying, and it's actually, there's a very good, as he puts it, there's a very good reason they did not include it, because it derails a lot of her absurd claims.
Yeah,
when it comes to correlating.
It basically delivers like a very huge sick burn too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then again, totally look up that video. It's a really great video, well informed. Also look up Takashi Nogami's tweets on this issue, and also I recommend following Dan Kanemitsu. He's also on Twitter. I actually dinged him, basically saying, "Hey, thank you. I totally thank you for like appearing on that documentary and like actually kind of standing up for this kind of medium, because I feel like censoring art, I believe is like one of the most offensive things to me, because as someone who considers myself kind of like an artist in a sense, since I do editing, I consider video editing to be an art form and all that stuff. I believe like the government telling you what you can and can't draw is just egregious to me.
Well, I would caution you that a lot of people have very differing opinions on what constitutes as art, and there's a difference between art and smut. Just because you're filming pornography does not make it art theater.
Oh yeah,
and the same thing with just because you're drawing girls of any age being sexualized or whatever does not make your art art. Our art is about portraying a message and evoking an emotion, and if what you're trying to do is piss off SJWs, then go for it. Produce all the absurd doujinshi you want. If that's your goal, then I can constitute as art. But if all you're trying to do is get a dude to buy your book because he's horny, then I don't really constitute that as art. But even on a more basic level, you're right. Censorshipping the pen is one of the biggest hindrances you can possibly put into a culture. And again, this is all stuff that's pretty well fleshed out in. But I do like your point about art, and even if you don't consider these kinds of doujinshi in general, or hentai, or any kind of anime or manga, even if you don't consider anime and manga in the larger scale as art, censoring what a person can do with a pen is just absurd. And if every culture had partaken in that kind of law, then you wouldn't have the French Revolution, you wouldn't have the American Revolution, you wouldn't have a lot of the positive things that have come out of people being able to write what they want on a piece of paper.
Yep.
and draw what they want on a piece of paper. A lot of art back in the 16th century was considered 15th, 16th century was considered heresy, but it survives today because we knew better, and I hope people end up knowing better.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, that's pretty much that recent controversy that I wanted to kind of like bring up because I consider myself kind of like passionate when it comes to how people express themselves and all that stuff, and whether if that expression is repulsive, hey, the way I see it, if someone draws something offensive, it's like I believe it's like I feel like that's awesome, but at the same time, I also don't have to look at it or anything like that. So.
Well, just because somebody's drawing something doesn't mean they're trying to encourage you to indulge in it. It's just like people draw graphic art. It's graphic art all the time, and when I say graphic art, I mean there's people who draw gory pictures and quote unquote brutal art for metal covers, but they're not encouraging someone to go out and kill their parents, eat their organs, and perform a satanic ritual. It's just part of the culture.
Yeah.
And the same can be said about sexualizing youth or younger girls, high school age girls. People also have to remember that anime and manga is targeted towards teenagers generally, teenagers to young adults, and so a lot of they're not stupid. They know a lot of kids who are underage end up going online, going to pornographic websites. They know that there's a market there for younger teenagers. These kids are allowed to go to Comic-Con. There's no age restriction there, despite a lot of the material being for adults. So they are simply playing to their market. What do teenage boys want to fuck? Well, possibly, 20, 30-something porn stars, but also, the hot girl in their class. So That's just pandering to the medium. Now, as far as the younger kids go, sure, whatever, but we've already, I don't want to beat a dead horse here.
Yeah, that's basically it. Check out that guy's video. It's a really good video. And also, if you can stomach it, I recommend seeking out that BBC documentary. Too.
And to be fair, that BBC documentary, when it's not trying to correlate, doing the whole correlation is causation flaw in logic on anime and manga, it's actually very informative. And I would look it up too.
Yeah.
Just ignore the idiotic statement she makes about culture that she doesn't understand.
Yes. But yeah, I guess with all controversy aside, I guess we can get into the main topic. Okay, so the main topic of like this particular episode, we are talking about Sword Art Online, kind of like as a mini retrospective on the show. Consider this kind of like a hype cast before we see the movie called Ordinal Scale, which is coming out tomorrow as of this show. As of this recording, I should say.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So, the reason why I am over at my friend's house is to talk about this, and he is a very passionate fan of SAO, so...
I'm better than you.
So, since you have more knowledge on this than, like, me, I'm pretty much what I would call kind of like a casual. So, Saradin, take it away. So what is Sword Art Online really about?
So, where do I even begin on this topic? Most of you, even if you haven't watched the series, if you've been living under a rock, have at least probably heard of the series Sword Art Online. It aired originally in 2012, and historically speaking, was incredibly popular among its release. It kind of revitalized and rebirthed the virtual MMO genre of games, which kind of was born and died with .hack.
Yeah.
There were, I believe there was one other show that attempted to do whatever .hack tried to do, but it didn't go over well, and I still to this day don't know the name of that anime, although people claim it exists. But Sword Art, what it did was it took the idea of .hack, which was a virtual reality game with a hint of mischievous or sinister nature to it underneath it. Kind of a dystopian nature to it, and made it more digestible. The issues with .hack sign was, at least when it was westernized, was that it was at a 1 a.m. time slot, and its pacing, it played out more like a drama or a thriller than it did an MMORPG, which you're going to expect fighting and party battles and PvP and all kinds of action and cool stuff. And it was very slow, very trudgy. And honestly, I tried to get into it, but I couldn't gravitate to it. I couldn't digest it at that time slot.
Same here.
And Sword Art Online took the idea of dot hack, at least to the very basic concept of the genre, and it made it incredibly digestible. Some say too easily digestible. Some say there's so many plot holes that it looks like Swiss cheese. But when it was first coming out, historically speaking, Sword Art was incredibly popular. It had a very heroic, very, I won't say noble, but a very likable main character. He's kind of vanilla, but Akirito is kind of vanilla, but he's easily relatable because of that. He ends up, and the premise of it is the first 10,000 players of the first fully immersive, physically immersive virtual MMORPG get trapped there by its creator, who designed the game as a giant social experiment. The only method of escape, of course, is to beat the game. Now, before we get into, and I'll talk about the absurdity and the realism of that statement in a moment, because a lot of you at home are probably going, "Who beats an MMO?" Well, I mean, Sword Art Online is not just a normal MMO, obviously. It's an environment designed for one purpose. So having an MMO that has an ending makes perfect sense for this case. But the idea is that if your avatar's HP drops to 0, or you're killed into any other means such as jumping off the level, which happens to several characters, then you die. And your physical body is murdered by the machine that is currently strapped to your head. Any attempts to remove the machine will also result in your immediate and rapid death, due to the same radiation that communicates with your brain. So it had a really good hook, a really tense environment. The first episode slam dunks the hook. It's one of the best hooks in an anime I've ever seen. It had me at the edge of my seat. And before I go into it any further, I saw Sword Art at the best possible time, I feel.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what was your story?
My story is I saw Sword Art at the best possible time, I think, which was right after the first 24 episodes aired, while it was still hugely popular. But while there was enough hesitation that it was hugely popular to the point where people would say it was good, but no one would tell you anything about it because they wanted you to go and watch it. They were like, "Dude, you have to go watch this show. It's so good. It's so entertaining. It's so much fun. You got to go watch it. It's amazing." And but nobody would tell me anything about it. And I was a skeptic. I always am a skeptic with anything popular. It's a natural reaction, especially in the anime in the anime group.
Yeah.
And so I went into it with very little expectation, and I was blown away by it. And the contrivances that people talk about were so undermined by the fact that I had no expectations going into it, and the show is so good at hooking you at the beginning and just taking you for a fun ride, that if you don't go into Sword Art Online with any preconceptions about the show, no hype and no, "Oh, this show sucks dick" kind of remarks lingering around, you can actually really enjoy yourself. And almost everybody I've ever talked to that entered it the same way I did, like near the beginning or right at the beginning, and watched it episode to episode, enjoyed the memes that came out as a result of it. They enjoyed the absurdities of it just as much as they enjoyed the story and the romance that was in it and the action. It's been a long time also since we've seen a main character in anime that was able to win fights without having to brood for 20 minutes ahead of time, because most shonen action heroes, I mean, even One Piece and Naruto were doing this every episode after a while. The hero can't win a battle unless he broods and cries for 10 minutes before fighting, and then making a statement
or screams,
making a statement of how profound this fight has to be to my entire history. Like Kirito walks into a room and everything dies, and it's amazing. And that's the kind of hero we haven't seen in a long time in anime. And you know what? And one of the things I will say about it is it's incredibly refreshing. But Sword Art, its first arc is incredible. It is definitely the best that the series has to offer. Most people's opinion are absolutely correct about that. From a writing standpoint, I have 4 years of writing school experience. I've examined a lot of scripts. I've practiced critiquing a lot of scripts. I feel like I, because of my exposure, know a lot about what decent writing is, and Sword Art does a good job in masking. Again, if you don't go in with preconceptions, does a really good job masking its plot holes and its issues with just an amazing environment, an excellent narrative, good pacing, and a lot of other things that are really positive. So, that being said, why is it one of the most hated animes of all time right now? Well, I like to compare Sword Art to The Matrix in a lot of ways. Not just
and also,
go ahead.
I think SAO is kind of like Tron. I was kind of when I was like rewatching parts of the show, I kept thinking to myself, this is kind of like Tron if Flynn willingly put himself into that system.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it lends itself to a lot of the genre. Remember, it is part of the virtual genre, which is the genre of television that's existed since Dot Hack, since Tron, since a lot of things in the 80s, since the idea of immersing oneself inside of a computer system became a thing with the advent of computers.
Yeah.
The ultimate goal of video games is immersion. People want you to stay in and be able to feel and experience the game as realistically as possible. And Japan especially is obsessed with this. If you look at their arcade culture is about putting you right there in the game, making your body the controller. The thing about, and you're right, there are a lot of things that are parallels between The Matrix and Sword Art, between Tron and Sword Art. But what I'm talking about is not only just the fact that there are a lot of things, including the ending of Arc 1 to Sword Art, are taken straight from The Matrix, but more so The Matrix, how its popularity happened. When The Matrix came out, if you examine The Matrix objectively today, it has a lot of plot holes. It has a lot of things that don't get properly explained. It has a lot of contrivances. It has a lot of Neo's amazing so he wins the fight moments. But you have to remember, when The Matrix first came out, it was the most unique thing we had ever seen on cinema. Ever. There were elements from 1,000 different genres which had been tried before, and it always fails. But it was able to be put together in such an elegant, amazing way, and be able to deliver such a thrill of entertainment that most people overlooked it, or didn't even look past it. They didn't look deep enough to find the contrivances because the movie was so damn entertaining otherwise. We had guys and chicks in black leather fighting government agents with Asian kung fu fighting. There was a bunch of digital techno jargon, and they were fighting robots in real life. Like, it was an amazing movie. It had a lot of really cool, amazing topics going on it. And then it also had the whole thing where it made you question reality. It made you question whether or not you were in the Matrix. It had those philosophical arguments that a lot of people, the average person, had not exposed themselves to. Now, if you're a longtime watcher of film noir, or a longtime watcher of much more deeper topic films, and television, then of course The Matrix was, the philosophical stuff's dumb, but there's still the kung fu fighting, which you're probably not used to seeing, which was amazing. So when they first came out, they were incredibly unique pieces of film. Even the second and third ones, most people still went to go see them, even though they knew, they're sequels, they're gonna suck. Because they just wanted more. The first one left them with a feeling of, we want so much more of this, this is awesome. Again, that was how it happened originally, and Sword Art was kind of the first series in 5 years that I looked at and said, this doesn't suck. And I'm being legitimate. Outside of any movie or anime movie or film, which generally elevate themselves to a higher quality than your average television show, like the anime movies and films was all I was really into. I started rewatching and on a lot of the old classics. I started watching like Outlaw Star again. I started watching the OG season of Dragon Ball Z again. I was stagnant. I was stale for a new, fun, refreshing series that matched the same level of story or quality or entertainment value as a lot of the stuff I used to watch. And then came along Sword Art, and it was new, it was refreshing, it was a genre that had been dead for a long time that nobody had seen. They were excited to see it back, they were excited to see it executed decently. It was such a refreshing show when it first came out that most people didn't care that some of the stuff makes sense. A good, great one that people like to talk about is why Diablo had to die in episode 2. Like, why did he just refuse the potion from Kirito? And you could make the argument, well, if people found out he was trying to scum the last hit bonus from the boss, then they would immediately turn and hate beta test players for the rest of the game. So he was trying to save the rest of the beta test players. You could make that argument, but we're talking about maybe a 20-something. He doesn't want to die.
Yeah,
like I would have taken that potion in a moment and just sat in the back and then apologized to everybody. And so, obviously that was a contrivance, and I noticed it when I watched it, but I was still so willing to overlook it because the entertainment value of the whole thing was so much better. And in fact, if you look at most of the initial reviews that came out years and years ago for Sword Art, it got solid 7s, 8s, even a couple 9s. People said, we can't really figure out what's so fun about the show, but it's really fun, and you should check it out. So what happened? So what the hell happened? Well, a floppy second half to the first season didn't help.
Yeah, and I wanted to talk about those, too.
Yeah. My biggest comment about those is don't watch the second arc. Go read books 3 and 4 of the series. Because there are huge chunks of the Alfheim story, the original Alfheim story, with Suguha, Kazuto's sister, Kirito's sister, that you don't get in the series, that help explain her motivations, explain their history and backstory, help reinforce the romantic feelings that she has towards him, help explain why she falls in love with Kirito over the span of almost a week and a half. It does a much better job explaining some of the things that just seem like they're thrown in there to appease the culture. It also does a much better job explaining the ins and outs of the villain's plan and why Asuna is such an integral part to it. Also, a lot of the things in the books are from Sugu's perspective, so you get a lot of her internal dialogue, which is missing because in the frame of reference of the show, we've already determined that Kirito is the frame of reference, so everything has to be from his perspective. So the show kind of shot itself in the foot. It could have been done better. That being said, the second arc of the books is still not that great. But a lot of people felt that it was just a big disappointment in comparison to the first season. But when you follow up something so fresh and so new, it's hard to make the second iteration, wow you.
From what, one of my friends, in his video, he was talking about Sword Art Online and hatedom mentality. In a sense, the books were kind of almost written as as an expansion pack, in a sense.
Yes, actually. And how that is, I've read all of the books concerning Ironcrad, which is the original Sword Art Online arc. The first book, actually omits the chapters about Yui, Silica, Liz, and the mystery arc. The murder mystery arc, where they're trying to figure out how murders are being committed within, and they end up finding out it was a plan to bring out a murderer. Those arcs are actually omitted from the original series. Chronologically, they still happened, but the original book did not contain them. And he wrote them as you were right. He wrote them as a series of short stories that took place during the progression. Oh, also, when Kirito first meets Asuna, that part when she joins his party and they fight the floor 1 boss together. That is also omitted from the original text. The first time you see Asuna in the original book is when she meets him at Ago's shop and he has the Ragout Rabbit, or the Ragu Rabbit. That's the first time you encounter Asuna in the series.
Oh.
That being in the books. All of her origin, all of his origin, all of this other stuff is not explained until the second book. So you're right. The second book could be considered an expansion pack on the first book. That being said, every book going from there on out is sequential and written like a normal novel series. So that's probably what he meant by that.
Yeah, that's what my friend basically said. Yeah, it was basically an expansion pack. So, yeah, that's basically one point I wanted to kind of bring to you, since I wanted to ask you that question, since I know you've read the novels to an extent.
Right. Also remember that when he wrote this book, he was pressured. He wrote the other parts of the stories, like the second book, which is the series of short stories that fill in the gaps of season 1. He wrote that because he wanted to, because he wanted those parts to be in the original work, but they were cut for size reasons and because there wasn't enough editing time. And Regenki Buko is ridiculously stingy about their timelines. For producing works. I mean, they are. I don't know if you can hear that snapping sound. They are about quick money.
Quick.
I will say, though, that because of the absolute popularity of Sword Art, he was kind of forced into writing book 3 and 4. So again, Arc 2 is also the fault of bureaucracy forcing the Reiki Kawahara to continue his work. despite not having any real inspiration to do so, at least with the direction they wanted to take it. But so where does all the hate come from to Sword Art? It's got a really good first season, a really good first arc, first 2 books. It's got a really okay. They're not bad. Like, I don't think anything in Alfheim is bad. If you compare it to, if you take it out of its vacuum, and you put it next to a lot of other shonen series that people just claim are just amazing, it's not any worse than any of those.
Yeah.
In my opinion. It's not any worse than those. It doesn't do anything that these shows aren't doing, or it doesn't perform any contrivances that they aren't doing. It's just, again, the letdown comes from the fact that you had such an amazing first season, so anything feels like a freaking letdown.
Oh, definitely.
It's bet. Like, and but as far as like where does the hate come from? Well,
you know, that's my first point I wanted to bring up. In the second arc, that whole arc between Kirito and Suguha.
Yeah.
Everyone always likes to say that, oh, it was totally about Suguha wanted to bang her cousin and all that stuff. It's like, when you really, really watch it, it's not exactly about that. It's more about saying like, oh, this is my cousin. I gotta get over this. That kind of thing.
It's absolutely about that. Like, here's the thing people miss.
Why do people not get that? If people say that,
because
people say it's another motto.
Because, and no offense to anyone who watches this who shares this opinion, but people are effing morons. When people hear a word like incest, or people hear a word like LolitaCon, they are so quick to jump to a series of images in their head that they have built up as a defense to themselves. Like, if it's incest, it has to be about all of this. It can't be anything deeper than skin. And that's the thing, is that while Suguha does have an attraction to her cousin, the whole point of her emotional struggle in this is not how do I get my Oni-chan to bang me. It's how do I reconcile these awful feelings I have within me. Like, I love this boy. The whole point of her falling in love with Kirito, which is Kazuto's avatar in Alfheim, the whole point of her letting herself fall in love with him was because she thought he was a different person.
Yeah, exactly.
She wanted to get over her love with Kazuto. Yeah. She wanted to get over her love with Kazuto, and then move on and try to find someone else that could fill the gap in her heart, which is an incredibly healthy way, by the way, to deal with awkward attraction like that. You can't just leave a spot in your emotions empty. You have to fill it. Like that's where a lot of people are disconnected, is they don't understand that Suga's entire point of that is to move on from these feelings. She wants to move on, and when she realizes that the person that she fell in love with to replace her brother is also her brother, it emotionally destroys her. And that's why she goes off the deep end, yells at him, gets upset, starts becoming seclusive for an episode or two. Like, she just doesn't know what to do with herself. She tried so hard to do the right thing, and it all just backfired into her face. And if in that situation, I don't know anybody who wouldn't be emotionally screwed up or upset. It's not that she's angry that she can't bang her brother, it's that she's angry that she can't get over the screwed up feeling she has. And again, this proves that she's an incredibly healthy human being. She just has some unhealthy tendencies, that's all. It's just, that's how I feel about it, and I think a lot of people just don't look at that because they hear the buzzword incest, and in comes all of these flooding ideas into their head about what incest is, how degenerate it is, what you've been told through the media, what you've been told through church, what you've been told through your parents, and people need to just take a step back. And it's one of those things, I like to say this a lot when people talk to me, listen to what I say, not to what you think I say.
Yeah.
And that's the thing in Sword Art is, look what Suguha's doing, not what you think she's doing. Because if you say, oh, incest, blah, 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 no, this is not that. But that's one of the big arguing points I like to make there. Another big argument point against Sword Art is the bullshit ending, which, to Arc 1, which is Kirito, if you haven't seen it, spoiler alert ahead.
Yeah, the spoilers ahead, yeah.
Spoiler alert ahead. But Kirito dies in the fight against Heathcliff. Legitimately. He makes a mistake, he uses a move that Heathcliff can tell the telegraph for, he blocks it flawlessly and then strikes Kirito at a point of weakness.
The guy designed the game. I don't know what Kirito expected. He even goes into the fight saying, I can't use sword skills because if I do, he'll know the exact way to counter them. And he ends up doing one out of rage, out of anger. He ends up doing one, and he gets defeated very easily. In the moment before dying, he overloads the nerve gear with his own emotions, like his own rage, his own force of will overloads the system, and it allows him a few extra seconds post-death where he's still manifested in Ironcrad to take up Asuna's rapier and stab that bitch in the chest and finish the game.
Yeah.
Allowing his freedom and contrivance, in a kind of contrivance, also allowing Asuna to safely escape from the game as well. That being said, people were like, this is as dumb as The Matrix. Actually, it's less dumb than The Matrix. Because in The Matrix, when Neo gets shot 15 times in the chest by Agent Smith and then when he's beaten to a pulp and then shot 15 times in the chest, his physical body on the other side of the Matrix also dies. Flatlines. Bleeding internally. And he comes back to life. Kirito never actually died. He just broke the system with force of will. And before we talk about what kind of BS that is, it came out of nowhere. No, it actually didn't. The whole point of the Yui arc in the first season, the whole arc where they meet this advanced AI, which, if you listen to some theorists, is actually Kaiba Akihiko's daughter. That AI was generated out of her genetic material, which is why it has some sentience. The whole point of that arc was to show that the rules of the game could be beaten. That you could not only play the game, but you could break the game by using backdoors in the system. Yui does this to delete a character that would have killed Kirito and Asuna. And Kirito is able to, although again, if you believe this theory, it was actually Yui doing it the whole time, is able to use an admin panel to break the rules of the game and save Yui's program. I like to believe the advanced AI did the hacking as opposed to the punk teenager using an admin terminal he's never used before theory. But either way, the point of that arc was to introduce a character, but also to prove that the rules of Ironcrad could be broken. Therefore, being able to say, "Oh, the ending wasn't actually a Deus Ex Machina because we knew the rules could be broken." That Ironcrad is not a perfect system. But again, where does all the hate come from in Sword Art?
And that brings us to the first point of that. People always say it doesn't make any sense. Here's my thing with that, and maybe this is just a fall of the storyline's timeline. I feel like if that story took place in 2121 rather than 2122, if I'm not mistaken.
It's actually 20.
22.
No, it's 2022. It's only like 10 years in the future.
Yeah, if that took place 110 years in the future, I feel like their subject of disbelief their suspension of disbelief, I should say, would probably be much more in effect rather than because I don't know what's with me when it comes to computer sci-fi. I don't know if I'm stuck in the 80s, but those things that quote unquote never made sense never really bothered me and all that stuff. Because of course there's also technology out there that people actually use brainwaves to control what's going on, like the Nekomimis, for instance.
Yeah, I mean, those exist. In fact, there's if you guys have Netflix and you watch a show called White Rabbit Project, which if you've ever watched Mythbusters, the build team for Mythbusters runs White Rabbit Project, and in one of the episodes they talk about sci-fi technologies that exist today, and mind control is the subject of one of their topics, and there's literally a device that if you hook it up to me and I hook it up to you, I can literally control your arms using my own arms.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, the technology is not actually that far out of bounds technologically. Now, if we're talking morally, shoving a microwave over your head and then turning it on to play a video game is something that's just never going to happen.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
But so the morality is way behind. But Japan might be the first one to do it because they tend to just believe scientists as opposed to trying to, when they say, hey, this is safe, which. To be fair, in Sword Art's storyline, that is not the best idea, considering the scientist who invented it was a madman. But going on to why people hate Sword Art, and I'm not gonna talk about season 2 because frankly I didn't watch it as much as this first season. But season 1. Let's talk about why people have so many problems with this.
Okay.
Doug Walker. First of all, a little bit of pretext. If you go online to YouTube again, or onto thatguywiththeglasses.com or channelawesome.com now.
Yeah.
And you look at Doug Walker's Nostalgia Critic videos, and you go down and you find a video called "Can Hype Kill a Film?" That's one of the biggest things. Sword Art was so impressive, so fun, and so explosively popular when it came out that, of course, the immediate reaction by the half that hadn't seen it was, okay, well, fuck this series. It's overpopulated, so it must be bad. You know, everyone likes to make fun of the big three because of how popular they are. Everyone likes to make fun of Dragon Ball Z and Sailor Moon because of how popular they are.
Yeah.
It has less to do with how good the show is and more to do with the fact that I just don't want to be considered part of the main culture. And also, and Doug Walker does a really good job of, I'll take a footnote from him, he does a really good job of talking about the fact that when you overexpose somebody to it, you know, I had a lot of fun with Sword Art because I went into it with very little information and very little preconception, so I got to discover the series. I got to feel like every single episode was a new discovery. Something was flipped over. There was just, I never knew what to expect from it. And when you start overpopulating a series and talking about how good it is, or how, and then, you know, you see the memes, you see the screenshots online, you see people changing their Facebook profile pictures to pictures of Kirito wielding 2 swords, like, all of that discovery that you could experience for yourself watching it that made people love the series is dissipated, is lessened, because there's already so much of it in your face that you feel like you're not discovering anything new. There's no enjoyment of learning or from the show, and that's the thing that kills it. That's why one of the reasons that hype kills it, and I can believe that. It makes absolute sense to me. And popular, we all know that, you know, people are sick and tired of the movie Frozen at this point. At least the adults are. The kids, if you, again, borrowing a quip from his video, if you play the song Let It Go in a room of children, that's all you're going to hear for the rest of the day, and you'll want to shoot yourself after the second iteration of it.
Yeah.
But, and that's just, and you can't go to Walmart or any store anywhere without running into at least one item that's related to Frozen. I went into the hardware department at Walmart to pick up a light switch cover, and they had Frozen-themed light switch covers for your kid's bedroom. I couldn't believe this. Like, it's everywhere. And if and to be fair, it's kind of the same way on the internet when it comes to Sword Art. You can't go to one anime forum without seeing one person with a Sword Art profile pic, without seeing, and at the time you couldn't go anywhere without seeing it plastered everywhere. So obviously the overexposure ruins the feeling of discovery, and it ruins the enjoyment. So people going into it either have this expectation of, oh, it's overhyped garbage, or they have the expectation of, it's absolutely perfect and amazing, and in both cases you're going to be disappointed. And so you set yourself up for failure going into it afterwards. So the second wave of people that enjoyed Sword Art didn't get the same experience from it. They looked at it more objectively. They looked at it harder. They examined it. They said, is this really the show people love, that people are telling me that I should love? And when you start to hyper-examine Sword Art, then absolutely it falls apart. Then, again, drawing a parallel to the Matrix series, Doug Walker, again, does a fantastic 4-video series on the entire Matrix quadrilogy, and talks about, including the Animatrix, and talks about this movie isn't really that great or inventive. It was just really hyped for its time because it was something we hadn't seen yet.
Oh, yeah.
And now, what do we have in the anime industry? Well, okay, Sword Art's not impressive because ReZero exists. Sword Art's not that impressive because Log Horizon exists. Overlord exists. You have all of these generic guy, New World animes that exist because of Sword Art's popularity being a thing. Without Sword Art, you would not have ReZero being a successful series. You would not have, or even being conceptualized, you would not have Log Horizon being a successful anime project.
Yeah.
So, and now it's like, oh, Sword Art's just another one of the generic guy New World animes. And if you look at it as a member of the genre, you're right, it's not perfect. It has its flaws.
The term for that generic guy New World thing, it's called isekai. That's what it's called.
It's called isekai?
Yeah, okay. Isekai, yeah. Isekai anime, yeah.
Weeby Words Mike didn't know, list number 1. So
yeah,
isekai anime. So isekai anime. So you get these, and there's a ton of them now. So if you look at Sword Art as a member of its genre, you're right. It's not as good as some of the iterations. I would say ReZero. I thoroughly enjoyed Gate, and I kind of consider it the same kind of genre. even if a lot of people don't.
But it's
but-
right wing.
Oh, who cares? So is everything. Hail Trump. Anyway, I'm just joking. Anyway, but the whole thing about I hope we didn't just lose half our viewership. Anyway,
who cares? Go on.
But anyway, but the whole thing about it is like these shows lend themselves to existing because of Sword Art's popularity, and if you compare Sword Art now, but yeah, I'm kind of talking in circles, but you see, it was popular because it was new, it was refreshing, and the second wave of people scorned it because they looked at it a lot more analytically. They were less about trying to enjoy it and discover it, and they were more about trying to criticize it. And when you hyper-criticize Sword Art, it does fall apart. You've got to let yourself go into it with no preconceptions. You've got to try to just enjoy the series, and it will give you a fun ride.
Yeah.
You got to be less concerned with the nuts and bolts of the roller coaster and just enjoy the damn ride. And that's what Sword Art does really well, is it provides a fun ride for you.
There's also like a lot of people that will oftentimes, basically from the social justice crowd, everyone always likes to say, "Oh, Asuna is a very sexist character because she's a power fantasy or something like that." When I watched the show, that never really come across to me. But then again, I'm a cis white male, so what do I know? So.
Well, the first thing about SJWs is they're the laughing stock of the rest of the internet. For God's sakes, 4chan had a day where they did nothing but on April Fools, where they did nothing but troll SJWs on Tumblr, and they're doing it again this year, by the way, to a greater extent, and I can't wait. When it comes to a lot of people also degrading Sword Art for its sexist tendencies, my first comment is, you're watching anime. What do you expect? You're not expecting any of the women to be sexualized ever. This is a genre of television show designed for incredibly sexually inexperienced teenage Japanese boys, and you're expecting none of the women to be sexualized whatsoever ever, or degraded to a point where they meet some kind of fantasy. That's why almost every anime character, female at least anymore, can be dialed into one of a box full of tropes, because those are the sexual fantasy versions of women that boys find attractive. The dere, the tsundere, the yandere, the kudere, whatever, the gothic Lolita, the gothic, the sweet Lolita, all of these other characters, these are all tropes, and no matter what kind of paint job you put on them, they're still the same tropes. Asuna, frankly, for me, she's one of the more refreshing characters, but she's the main girl, so she's supposed to be interesting and refreshing.
Yeah.
Silica's kind of the Oni-chan kind of lolly girl, and there's nothing wrong with that. I had a friend try to tell me that Silica was the most developed female character in all of Sword Art, and I laughed out loud at him in front of a party of multiple people. I was at a New Year's party, and we were all drinking, and I literally laughed at him for about 5 minutes. Silica is just cut and dry lolly trope. Not gonna lie, she's not interesting. She's not entertaining. That doesn't mean she's not entertaining, by the way. Just because a character's not interesting or inventive doesn't mean they can't be entertaining. There's something to be said for the crime drama thing, where every crime drama is boiled down to 100 episodes, just given a new skin of paint and a new name every time. It's the same 100 episodes over and over again. But and with Silica, she's just another lolly. But that doesn't mean she's not an entertaining character. That trope is entertaining. But Asuna gets a bit more development, and when you say she's a power trip or that she's a damsel in distress, I will say that was one of my biggest disappointments in season 2, or in arc. I keep doing that in arc 2 of season 1. Is that she was turned from a very empowered person, just as capable of saving Kirito as Kirito was capable of saving her. In fact, they went back and forth, and if you actually look at the score sheet, they're almost exactly tied as far as who saves the other in certain situations. So they were very much a team. Asuna was as much an equal to Kirito as far as their quest went as he was. She was as much a main character, as much a driving force and a motivation for the ending of the series as he is. And I would defend that point to the death against any SJW, and I'd win every time. In arc 2, again, a lot of problems with that arc. Asuna being a damsel in distress, while she still showed a lot of resourcefulness, a lot of resilience, and a lot of empowering features. If you are stuck in this situation against your will, I would much rather be like Asuna than I would be like oh yeah, 99.9% of the other damsels in distress in all of anime that SJWs don't complain about. But, again, it's just they're going after Asuna because they want to shock and awe the people that are in love with this character, who enjoy this character. And is Asuna perfect? I mean, I think she is. I mean, I'm just, no, she's not. That's a joke. She's definitely not perfect, and neither is Kirito. None of the characters, obviously, in Sword Art are perfect. Many of them are just repeat tropes, but it's the way that the show is put together, and I think anyone who is trying to degrade SAO on that kind of level is just looking for something to degrade and attack the first thing that showed up on their news feed on Facebook. That's my honest opinion. Is just there's no real looking at Sword Art in a vacuum, sure, you could attack Asuna for being a power trip or a damsel or whatever, but if you look at it at the greater scale of all anime girls, she's not even close to the most degenerate level of degradee or like of power tripping or any of that crap. Like, not even close. Like, she's in the bottom tier when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, she seems like she could hold her own and all that stuff, too. I mean, that's what I kind of saw.
She does, commonly.
And
she very much does, commonly. And in fact, that's why I love the Mother's Rosario arc, because it reminded a lot of people that, hey, did you know Asuna's a character? Because she is, and she's fully capable of, getting herself dressed in the morning and going out and doing everything that Kirito does. Because she does.
Yeah.
And she doesn't need her boyfriend's help. Well, except that one time, but damn it, I wanted to see magic spells be deflected by swords the entire game. So,
there was I'm trying to remember like what point. I gotta ask. When it got to the end of season 1, like the legit end of season 1, not arc 1. How did you feel about that rape scene between that tycoon guy and Asuna?
Look, Riki Kawahara knows how to do two things really well. He knows how to create a virtual universe, and he knows how to write rape scenes. Okay? Those are his two talents. And if you didn't like the ending of Season 1 and you're expecting to go into Underworld without any Underworld arc, which is allegedly becoming an anime series in 2018, if you guys didn't like the rape in that, you guys are going to get exposed to a little bit more of it. Same thing in season 2. If you didn't like the attempted rape of Asuna Chino, I'm not even going to talk about that. Of Asuna Chino, then you're just really not going to like the Underworld arc, because if you watched season 2 and you weren't paying attention, let me refresh you. Asuna's mother is trying to force her into a marriage with a son of another regal family. There's 2 prospective boys that she could marry.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't end well. Turns out that the parents who tried to set her up with one rapist would try to set her up with 2 more. At least that's what I've heard. I have not read it, but I know that is something that's coming up. That arc never got finished. It was only hinted at, and they're going to save it for the 2018 season.
Oh, yeah. So, I guess with all of that, and also, let's also tackle another elephant in the room. Kirito is, or Kazuto, Kirito, how you want to call him, is OP, a Gary Stu, and is the utmost perfect anime boy ever, and all that stuff.
Well, I mean, it's hard to doubt reality. I'm sorry if you guys have a problem with this idea, but he is a perfect man. Anyway, moving on. Let's talk about Kirito real quick. All right, so. Yeah. I will say that pretty much anything that Kirito does in the series, you have to take with a bit of suspension of disbelief.
Uh-huh.
But let's talk about a few things. A lot of critics like to complain about the fact that he's just too unbeatable. And this is one of the things I love to argue with people, because they're almost always wrong. Because, again, it's the listen to what I say, not to what you think I say kind of argument. Watch what happened, not what you think happened. Stop taking shortcuts in logic, and stop mindlessly watching animes like this, half drunk at 2 o'clock in the morning when you have nothing else to do and you're fapping. Like, pay attention and you'll actually figure out what's going on. So, a great one that gets argued about is, and this is an Unmentionable's favorite thing to rag on the series about, more about that later, Kirito, when helping Silica, ends up fighting 5 assassins simultaneously, and they can't deal enough damage to him to actually take a nick into his damage, into his health. I don't know how many of you have ever played an MMORPG before, but if you're 40 levels above most any other player, there's no way in hell they can put a dent into you. Unless you're in specifically a scaled PvP arena. Like, a scaled PvP arena.
Uh-huh.
If you're out in the wilderness, and you're fighting, and you're level 40-something, and your opponent is level 87, and you try to throw the strongest attack at you, I would be shocked if you took out more than 5% of his health. I've done this.
Maybe a tank.
I've done this. I've tried this. It's almost impossible. MMORPGs are designed this way. They are designed to make numbers your best asset, especially JRPGs. So the fact that he was able... Now, I don't know if the exact numbers line up. And if I had 5 characters all attacking me simultaneously, I mean, I would expect more than 10% of my health to disappear before it was able to immediately regenerate. That part's kind of, contrived and ridiculous, but the basic concept is sound. There is no way, and I can think of, that multiple level 40 enemies could beat a level 80-something without a considerable amount of sweat and time on their hands and pre-planning. And that part makes sense to me. I don't know if the exact little details, again, the nuts and the bolts may not make sense, but the overall ride of it does completely make sense to me. And that's when people like to argue. As far as his fight with Heathcliff, well, first of all, he lost the first fight. Heathcliff cheated. But it was the first time. But after saying, "Oh, but he's invincible. He can't lose to any enemy because he just took 5 guys on him and survived." He lost a fight in an arena. He almost won, but he didn't. The guy cheated, and then he loses again. He technically loses a fight again in the arena. The only reason he won is because he overloaded the system. He went through a back door and he cheated.
So it's essentially he cheated right back.
So he cheated right back to win the fight. So again, we're not talking about a character that's actually OP. He cheated against his fight with Sugu, against his fight with Sugo, the rapist pig. He loses horribly because he's not an admin, and Sugo cheats with admin privileges to fucking reduce him to level 1, put him in the dirt, and put a sword into his back. So he was not winning that fight. And in fact, he had another admin, the Ghost of Kaiba Akiko, which he had uploaded into the internet, come back and literally save him and give him admin privileges. So again, he could cheat and win. If you're saying that Kirito is OP, that tells me that Kirito is a character that is so powerful, so strategically adept that he cannot be beaten in a fair fight. He's just a filthy cheater. Okay? Like, that makes perfect sense to me. Yeah. Like, if Goku had a way to teleport behind Frieza and rip his heart out of his chest without Frieza being able to notice it, yeah, Goku wouldn't be OP. He's just a fucking cheater.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Like, you can say that's OP, you can say that's overpowered, but it's not in the way that people think of. We're not talking about, again, going back to Goku, but in a different light. We're not talking about a Saiyan who theoretically can blow up planets and teleport instantaneously, and who has the strength of, 10 Arnold Schwarzeneggers. Like, we're talking about, like, just a boy who knows how to work with computers and is lucky enough to break them occasionally. And that's why I really... Again, in most of his other fights and emotional struggles, he doesn't actually win. In his fight against Death Gun, again, spoiler alert here if you haven't seen it, Shoichi Shinkawa, in his fight against Shoichi Shinkawa in Gun Gale Online, he's losing the fight horrifically. Like, Shoichi Shinkawa is ripping this kid apart with an S-Stock. He's got a lightsaber and he's losing to a sharp piece of metal.
Yeah, that's like
Kirito's not actually a good fighter. He's not actually good. The only reason he wins is because Sinon uses a bullet line to distract Death Gun, allowing Kirito to get an opening. And because Kirito's got a lightsaber which kills you in one hit, as was proven in every single other time he's fought with it in the rest of Gun Gale arc, he was able to get one strike in on Death Gun and kill him. So, like, again, the nature of the weapon attached with the fact that it was a 2-on-1 fight, technically, and somebody provided a sneak attack. Like, okay, congratulations. You needed one hit to win, and you were losing horribly. You won because you had some help. Kirito is not OP. And I will argue this point to death with people. Every single time he has won a major critical fight, except one, the only time he has won a fight that wasn't already stacked in his favor was when he was fighting General Eugene. When he was fighting General Eugene in Alfheim Online.
Oh, in Alfheim, okay.
It was the only time that he actually won a fight because he was actually quote-unquote OP. And Treesicle has a great video on this. It's The True Story of Kirito, or Kirito, the Story You Didn't Know from Sword Art Online. He's got a great video that better explains that fight than using some of the information from the novels than that. Again, his name is Treesicle on YouTube. Interesting guy, check him out. And he talks more about that fight, but again, that's the only time he's really won a major fight outright, just using his own skill. Everything else he's had help doing. Yes, he's always considered the victor of the fight because it was always his fight to begin with, but call him overpowered? Not. It's nonsense. In my opinion, it's nonsense.
Yeah.
Like, he is not strong-arming his way invincibly through a wall of enemies.
Yeah, I never really got that whole Gary Stu criticism, if I'm being real honest with you.
Well, he's not really that interesting of a character. He's the noble hero. That's the thing, is that all of our heroes these days have to have some stupid backstory or like something that holds them back from their past and all this other stuff. And it's so hard to find an anime character that just can stand up on his own 2 feet without needing someone to hold his emotions up on a crutch. and I get it, and it's supposed to be more interesting, but honestly, as I watched more and more anime, all of the backstories are the same. Oh, I lost my ex-family member when I was young, so it traumatized me, and now I have to struggle with the pain of living in X situation every day, and this is what motivates me to be X class of hero. And it's like, why can't you just be a good kid who wants to do the right thing? Like, we haven't seen that. Why can't you just be the hero type? Like, why does there have to be some kind of motivator? Is it more realistic? Not in my opinion. The things that drive... The tragic things in my past don't drive me to do noble things. They drive me to hate other people and be angry. And again, this is a very personal discussion when it comes to me, but the things that have hurt me in the past drive me to hate people and be angry, not to do things that are noble, not to make things right. The world screwed you over, so why would you care about it? In my opinion, the noble, selfless hero character is motivated by far more than that. But again, even Kirito has had some tragedy in his past. He lost his entire guild because he's an idiot. It was his mistake that killed a family that he had. And that motivated him to power grind for months to become powerful enough that he would never let anyone else he cared about die again. And that's noble. Like, we can't just have a noble hero. But when you look and compare all of the backstories of every anime male character, quote-unquote hero, in shonen style anime, it's all the same damn backstory. I lost X family member when I was X years old. It made me live in this kind of X situation, and because of that, I became this X class of hero. It's the same story every time.
And the same thing can be said for shows like Attack on Titan. Oh, my family was eaten by Titans, so I got to become the soldier.
I became red-faced and foaming at the mouth for 12 fucking years. You never got over it? Like, Jesus Christ, talk about PTSD. You just never stop being on the defensive. I don't want to get into Attack on Titan because I'll offend a lot of people.
But
We've
already offended a lot of people already. So.
I probably have.
But yeah, that's not the
my
subject.
overall opinion of Sword Art Online is it's a good show, and it's been ruined. The opinion of it has been ruined by people who were overexposed to it, hyper criticized it, and don't compare it to other animes outside of its own vacuum. They look at it and only it, and they don't compare it to the other stuff they watch. One of my favorites is Sword Art's crap, but Log Horizon's good. Well, I mean, that's fine. I think Log Horizon has a better concept. I think Sword Art executes its concept better. But they both have merits. But, or saying my favorite is, oh, I think Sword Art's crap, but Konosuba's the best thing on the planet. I'm like, no. No, it's not.
Oh.
It's generic. And that doesn't mean you're not allowed to enjoy it. I'm not berating anyone for enjoying generic anime. But Sword Art's not... If Sword Art's not that original, then Konosuba is the most generic pile of things I've ever seen on the planet. How many tropes can we throw in this bag and then force down our viewers' throats? Like, sure, it might be a well-executed... what was the name of that genre?
Isekai.
It might be a well executed isekai anime, but it's still just an isekai anime. Guess what? It's one of dozens now. You're not being anything special anymore.
Yeah, I just don't understand why some anime gets a pass and some anime just gets tossed in the dumpster hardcore. And all
well, I'd also like to talk about a certain individual on YouTube very briefly.
Please,
briefly. If any of you have had the unfortunate, and I'm going to talk kind of harshly here because my opinion of this individual is incredibly negative, and I'm going to explain why that is. The YouTuber Digibro, and I'm not doing this to promote him whatsoever, and I'd really rather you just never go to his page because by saying his name, I know that some of you are going to go to his page, are going to check him out. Some of you might even like him. I feel sorry for you, and I wish you the best of luck in your future. Good luck with that. But at the same time, so I feel sour about even talking about him. I'd rather just not talk about him and pretend he doesn't exist. Let's talk about Digibro real quick. He did what became famous on YouTube as called the analytical diatribe of Sword Art Online. Let's talk about, there's a guy who did a video, and I don't remember what it's called, but the video is called Sword Art Online, How Digibro Killed an Anime. Go watch both parts of it.
Yeah, by the Pedantic Romantic.
The Pedantic Romantic is the name of him. I think some of his points are spot on. First of all, you have to understand that Digibro is the person that really started the hate train for Sword Art Online. And let me explain to you why. He didn't like the anime at all when he started it. Digibro got into Sword Art Online when it first came out. He got 7 episodes in and said, I hate this series, I'm not going to watch it, it's not for me. Digibro has a very solid understanding of the kinds of shows that he likes and the kinds of shows that he doesn't like. And honestly, the things I see him rag on the most are the generic shonen anime. Sword Art Online, Konosuba, Gate, things like that. In fact, he's got a video on his page called How to Tell a Terrible Anime in One Episode, and it's just an episode of Gate. And honestly, I know a lot of people who thoroughly enjoyed Gate for its fanfare. It's just pure fan service. And I don't mean just sexual. I mean military fan service and guns and fighting and beautiful women and great. And it's got a decent story and a political structure. And it's interesting. And it's fun. But does that mean but his opinion is that's terrible. So we obviously know what kind of genre he doesn't like. That being said, he dropped Sword Art Online and never said anything about it. His fans came to him years later, about 2 years later, and said, please review Sword Art Online. So he sat through it and marathoned it with his brother, allegedly, or his friend or something. And of course, He set himself up for failure going into it. That's the thing you have to remember is when a reviewer goes into a movie, he tries to look up. A good reviewer will try to have no preconceptions about a film or a piece of literature because they don't want to have any of those preconceptions that will skew their opinion of the show. And when you go into Sword Art already hating it, of course you're going to do nothing but try to analyze why you hate it. So I will say that Digibro did an excellent job in pointing out Sword Art Online's flaws. Congratulations. What he has failed to do since then is ever look at any other anime in the same genre. He's never looked at Attack on Titan. He's never looked at Konosuba. He's never looked at Gate. He's never looked at Log Horizon. Never touched them, never reviewed them. Other than one episode to hate on Gate. And the thing is that it's got this idea that Sword Art Online is the only thing that Digibro hates because it's bad, and that's not true. He just doesn't like the genre. He finds flaws in everything, and so again, taking Sword Art out of a vacuum and putting it in with the other animes of that genre, Digibro just kind of hates all of them, but Sword Art is the one that he was forced to sit down and be force-fed by his fans. Again, Digibro is on YouTube to make money. Okay? That is his goal. And every video he posts has some hostile, negative, clickbait type title. It's meant to piss people off, to get them to watch his videos. He doesn't care if you like him. He just wants you to watch him. And then he wants you to go bitch about him on social media so that other people go check him out. So that other people... He uses hate as an advertisement. That's what he does. And I'm sorry, but there are so many better reviewers. I would even say that Mother's Basement has... And I hate this guy too.
Oh,
but I would
can I say something?
I would even say that Mother's Basement... One second. I would even say that Mother's Basement has a better formed opinion about most of the tiny aspects of Sword Art than like Digibro does. But go ahead.
There's a thing about Mother's Basement. When he rags on Sword Art Online, actually, it's kind of been a well-known fact. This is according to my friend Zeke. He said that they said that is actually a thing. Like Mother's Basement does it for the clicks when they talk when they.
Oh,
they
absolutely,
rag,
and that's the thing you have to
Online.
remember. You know what? That's the other thing you have to remember is that Digibro does a lot of his videos for clicks. I mean, again, you can get paid being a YouTuber, and sometimes the thing you love to do most is just sit in front of a camera and bitch for an hour and a half. I mean, the diatribe on Sword Art Season 1 is literally over an hour long, or it's like 45 minutes to an hour long, and so it's just him complaining the entire time. The thing about this person is that he kind of started the hate train, and what he did more than that was he also gave a lot of justification for the hatred.
Uh-huh.
It caused this thing where a lot of people who liked Sword Art, like myself, had to kind of reserve their opinion about it because you were kind of seen as a moron after that video came out if you liked this series. And again, if he put the same microscope he used on Sword Art Online to hyperanalyze anything else that he dislikes, it would have the same effect, I feel, of any other series that was popular. I'd love to see him do Attack on Titan sometime. I would love to see him do that series. If he is, he would actually be my hero then if he did, because at least he'd be fair in hating the other really popular bullshit series out there.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the thing about Digibro is that he does what he does for likes and for views, and what he has done to boost his own popularity as he's created a lot of dissent and hatred among the anime community when there doesn't need to be any. Thing we can learn from Sword Art is that the anime community is supposed to be incredibly inclusive. People are supposed to be able to come to each other and talk about animes that they like and enjoy it and feel like they're not being segregated for it. I mean, I can understand if you like actual garbage like Boku no Pico and you have to go to like some mother's basement somewhere and talk about it. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, jab, jab. But, at the same time, like, if you like a series like Sword Art, you should be able to express that. I don't think One Piece watchers are dumb, even though I think One Piece is dumb.
Yeah, me too.
I've watched enough media and I've watched enough entertainment to understand that entertainment is entertainment and just pick your flavor. That genres are not for everything, and there's plenty of contrivances and plenty of different genres. No piece of cinema, to borrow a quip from Doug Walker again, no piece of cinema is perfect.
Yeah.
There is no such thing as perfect cinema, and it's just up to your level of contrivances that you're willing to accept. But what Digibro has done has instead created a hostility train against it, and once he did that, it motivated many other people to be outspoken about how much Sword Art Online is a pile of crap. We didn't want to like it because it was too popular. We were overexposed to it, and now we've got justification to call it a pile of crap. And there's where your hate comes from, folks.
And you know what's kind of sad about Digibro? To talk about one of my friends'
his shaving habits.
Not his
Continue. What were you saying?
His shaving
or
habits.
lack thereof.
My friend was on my friend's podcast, Josh Dunham's podcast, and you know what? Digibro. Sadly, it seemed like he seemed like a nice guy. He seemed like he looked like he knew what he was talking about, especially with Akiyuki Shinbo and all that stuff. And he even said like, "Oh, I want to unify the community," which is kind of ironic considering what.
Yeah, if he wants to unify the community, then he needs to stop degrading those who watch it. And I understand that he sees that there's a major problem with the anime market as it is now, like too many repeated tropes, too much harem anime, too much moe and ecchi, the same contrived storylines over and over again. And I understand that, but if you look at any genre of television, you're going to find the same thing. When anime was new and fresh, yes, you had a lot more originality because there was much more unexplored territory. So of course everything that came out of the anime industry was new, but now we've reached such an over-influx of it that there's only so many stories you can write, and they're running out of ideas. There's also only so many stories you can write that will sell, because again, the anime industry is, if nothing, want for money.
Yeah.
And, we're talking about entertainment, folks. They don't make this to teach a philosophy lesson. They teach it to make money. They want you to buy their shit. So if a series, they've kind of, they're just playing to their market. They're playing to what people they know is going to sell. And I understand that that's his biggest problem, is that there's little originality left. But
There really is out there. If you look at a series like The Town Without Me, like that series was fairly original, refreshing.
Or Erased for those.
Erased for those who know the English title, or the awkward English title. That series was very well received and very well done, and it didn't need to use any ecchi or moe or any character tropes. It was just very
moe.
Yeah, very.
I mean, Kaio.
Oh yeah. Very very down to earth series, and so it can be done. It does happen occasionally, and I think we should treasure those gems when they come, but don't spread dissent by hating on things that people enjoy for an afternoon of entertainment, man. Like, that's my problem with Digibro, and that's my problem with Mother's Basement. That's my problem with a lot of these hate trainers, is that they are just doing this to make money by spreading dissent among the community. If you like Sword Art Online, talk about it. Wear your shirts, and when people make fun of you for it, just tell them, just walk away, dude. If they're going to be such a child, that's the thing, is that they're probably also a viewer of anime, so their argument is literally the most pointless, pathetic thing they could possibly make.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay to have like a legit criticism. I mean, yeah, sure, I've had issues with Sword Art Online myself, but I don't see it. But I'm not going to view you as like this monster or something like that. Like that's just bullshit.
Or an idiot, or someone who just doesn't know what good entertainment is. Because frankly, Sword Art is good entertainment. Historically speaking, it's been proven to be so. Historically speaking, Naruto is good entertainment, and plenty of people have problems with that series.
Yeah.
Historically speaking, all the big three are. That's why I cannot force myself to hate them. Is because obviously it does speak to a large market. It does fill a niche, and it does fill a need in people's lives. They are entertaining, and that's the same thing I feel about Sword Art. That's the same thing I feel about a lot of series, any series really. The only ones I have issues with are the ones that try to make light of more serious topics, like Boku no Pico. But I think everyone kind of just universally hates and jokes about that series, so I don't need to go into it.
Yeah, that's pretty much a meme at that point.
Yeah, but again, like it's one of those things where there's very few truly awful series that are trying to do awful things out there. Most of them you've never even heard of. So if someone likes Sword Art, if you like Sword Art, if you just say it and be proud about it, enjoy talking to the people who also enjoy it, and don't feel afraid like you have to quell your opinion online. Like, let the haters be haters. Eventually they'll just burn themselves out, or no one will care anymore.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't care, and no one else should. It's Sword Art. My overall final verdict on Sword Art is that it's a great series. If you go into it without any preconceptions, and without knowing much about it, you'll enjoy it even more. So when you try to get your friend into it, who's getting into anime, don't tell him anything about it. Don't hype it up. Just let him enjoy it. Let her enjoy it.
Yeah, let them enjoy it.
And then just steer them away from YouTube and from those two YouTube channels I mentioned, Digiro and Mother's Basement, and then they'll be able to go on and be happy with their lives instead of feeling incredibly confused and angry.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is we just, as a community, if we want to bring ourselves together, we need to stop trying to dissent and pick our favorites and then be the us versus them.
Yeah, which
we
I
need
don't
to
like
just
at all.
understand that we're all otaku. We're all fans of anime at different levels. You have the big three lovers. You have the people who, like me, who like a lot of really dark, depressing seinen anime, but who also indulge in just about everything else as well.
And then you have me, the moe pig.
Yeah, little piggy. There's every level of indulgence, to the guys who just watch it when it comes on Toonami, to the people who have rooms like mine, posters and figures every wall, and may or may not have a waifu pillow or two. But those are dark days. Those are dark days. Anyway, so moving on, and there's other people, if you're looking for good reviewers, people who can give you objective opinions and people who can enrich your understanding of otaku culture, this podcast is a good one to do that. Any of the people, Otaku Midnight, this podcast is a great one to do that at. I know that he does a good job always referencing a lot of other people that you can follow on Twitter, people in the industry who actually work in the industry and understand the industry. YouTubers, again, most of my experience with Japan comes from watching videos on YouTube, educating myself. And I'm not talking about, watch Grandpa Shinobi fall off a chair, like funny stupid shit. Like I'm talking about
Grandpa Shinobi.
like actual entertaining, actual educational stuff. Look that stuff up, indulge yourself, and also watch all kinds of anime. Get a different perspective from like different kinds of shows that you can watch. Like maybe dabble in slice of life if you've never touched it before, or take a dabble and watch a season of the Big Three if you've just kept yourself away from it, and you might, and go into it with as few expectations. You might discover you like it.
And also another people I recommend. I've had a few people on from this on this podcast. The people at Wave Motion Canon at wavemotioncanon.com. I totally recommend those people. They do a lot of great work, and support them on Patreon if you can. So,
but my favorite YouTubers are Akiderist, Anime Man, and there was another one. There was another one I had, and I forgot her name. But those are the two best. I mean, they're both half Japanese, and they both have a lot of information that can help you enrich your understanding of the culture and the thing that you love. But there's a third, and if I ever remember it, I'll bring it up in the next podcast I'm part of.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so since this is basically a hype cast for the movie that we're going to be seeing tomorrow, Ordinal Scale, what do you expect going in?
Well, I didn't look at the reviews, but I've seen the tagline from the reviews of the film. Both IGN and Kotaku did reviews of it, and they said, if you are a fan of Sword Art Online, you will love this movie. They didn't say anything, the taglines really didn't say anything beyond that, honestly. They said it's good. They said it's fun. From what I can tell of the story, it borrows a lot of things from the other series. Reiki Kawahara did write this from scratch. No, he did write.
Okay.
He did write Ordinal Scale from scratch for this. He wrote the script for this film as a script for film. He never wrote. This is not part of the books. This is not a story that the novel snobs have read before. So even they will be surprised by going into this. My only issue with the advertisement is that it's just a game, or so I thought, was the final tagline, and I'm like, isn't that just the tagline of every arc of this entire series?
Yeah.
It's a game, but it's something more. Like, okay, well, whatever. It's an interesting concept. I can't wait to see it. It's promised a lot of action and good stuff in it, and I'm super excited. I'm interested to see. I think the most interesting character that I've seen, or at least potential, just from what we've been shown. And again, Japanese PVs and trailers, in my opinion, are awful. They never tell you anything, and they never hype appropriately.
And they also spoil the shit out of everything too.
Yeah, my thing is the second number 2 player in Ordinal Scale, which is the name of the game they play, the AR game, not VR game, I should say. The AR game, augmented reality game that they play, is the second player. The second best player. I would like to see what is he going to be a villain? Because the way that his shots show in the trailers, they always show him like standing at the end of a long at the long room, supported by the idol, who's obviously in a relationship with him or related to him somehow. They look like the final boss. But at the same time, I also see him charging forward as like a heroic character in certain scenes. They never show him with Kirito. They never show him fighting on the side, but I wonder what his part in the entire thing is, because I feel like the developer, which they also show, the developer of the game, is going to be the actual bad guy, kind of like how Kayabo is the bad guy. But the developer is going to be the bad guy, I think, but I'm interested to see what the number 2 player, whatever his name is going to be, what his part in the series, what he's going to bring to the series. Because... again, he's going to be a character that's pretty much at the level of Kirito, if not better, because, again, Kirito even states in the trailer that my body feels sluggish, this isn't the kind of thing I'm used to. I'm used to a virtual body without restrictions, and, so he's going to have to, this is a whole new experience for him. He's not going to have to actually do ridiculous things like acrobatics and sword fighting with his real body, which we know he can do some of, but he's not going to be able to perform to the level of he could in, like, Ironclad or Alfheim. So, but we have a person in the real world who's capable of doing all the insane stuff that he did in a virtual world in the real world. Because all of the flipping and jumping and sword fighting that you do in Ordinal Scale is done with your real body, using your real energy.
Yeah, that's going to be something, yeah.
So it's interesting to see a character who is acclimated to real fighting, essentially, like actually fighting,
and see how Kirito fights against this person or fights with this person when he's only used to having the virtual restrictions or lack thereof. So I'm super excited. It is a good formula going into it. I think they play it very safe. I do know that the film is at number 2 currently in Japanese box offices. This is in its second week. It was number 1 in the first week.
Yeah,
box offices.
It's done some pretty impressive numbers, like as far as the box office.
For a Japanese film, for a Japanese only serialized release film, it's absolutely done amazing. I think $20-30 million in the first weekend. Which is
when you
very
do the conversion.
right, which is very respectable for a Japanese film. Remember, Japan has a much smaller. When you talk about Iron Man 3 making $100 and X million or $200 and X million or whatever going into its first weekend, you're talking about an international release, not just a U.S. release.
Yeah.
Sword Art being a Japanese only movie, making $20-30 million on your opening weekend is extraordinary. It's very good. So a lot of people in Japan have enjoyed it, and hopefully we'll all get to enjoy it tomorrow as much as I hope I will.
And we will talk about that, and we will talk about that too, like on the car ride home and all that stuff tomorrow.
Right. And the thing is I'm sure there's going to be those people who are going to make YouTube videos tearing out every contrivance in the Sword Art movie, talking about how bad it is, and I would just like to tell those people ahead of time, blow it out your ass. No one cares.
And you know what
I'm going to go enjoy this movie, and you're not going to ruin my day, and that's going to frustrate you more than you hope to ever frustrate me, and that makes me happy.
And what I expect going in for this movie is, I'm pretty sure the visuals are going to be top notch, and I'm just looking forward to just hearing the glorious Yuki Kajira soundtrack and glorious 11.1 sound.
Right. I mean, the visuals and the music were always one of some Sword Art's strong points.
Yeah, those are my favorite aspects.
Right, and I hope they just continue that. Asada Shido ass notwithstanding, because I got enough of that crotch bulge in season 2 to last me a lifetime.
Yeah.
But all the other visuals are just top notch, just fine.
Yeah.
I love them.
So, but yeah, I guess that pretty much wraps us up. So, Sarden, where can they find you?
If you really care enough and you want to bombard my YouTube page, with comments and messages, that's fine. I have one really crappy Halo 5 montage on there. That's all my videos I have right now. At some point in the near future, I'm going to try to get back to the AMV game, at least for 1 or 2 little one-shots that I've been hoping to make. But for now, just if you want to leave a comment, 00 Saradin is my YouTube name. And if any of you remember the antiquated series Eureka 7, you'll notice that Renton is my SIG.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and he doesn't really have unfortunately, he doesn't really have a Twitter.
Yeah, I'm not a cool kid.
Yeah, he's
also, social media destroyed my life, so I try to stay away from it as much as possible. But
yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, so I don't have a Twitter yet. Maybe sometime in the future, if I come on and help with more of these Otaku Midnights or any other podcasts, I might start ramping that up a bit. But until then, just direct any questions you have to me and my amazing brain to this guy right over here.
Yeah, and I'll, of course, forward it all to him to where he can just laugh in your face.
Or send you a pat on the back.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Of course, if you want to reach us, at Otaku Midnight, it's otakumidnight@gmail.com. That is spelled OTAKUMIDNITE@gmail.com. And of course, you can always follow me on Twitter at Cube3rd, which is KYUUBETHE 3RD. So there you go. As always, I'm Cube3rd.
Oh, and I'm 00 Saradin.
And even though there's a hatedom around us every time we say it, this is Otaku Midnight.